working with. I have been working with this on this project as a so-called expert, and it has been a pleasure working with Carlotta. So I'm very. You can all look forward to listen to her. I have listened to her at many meetings. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Professor Kali Fasting. And so let's not wait anymore to introduce today's guest speakers. All right, so Charlotta, let me see. Let me stop my screen, and then I'm sure you are gonna introduce yourself as well. So let me give a warm welcome to today's guest speaker. She's okay, today's guest speaker is Charlotta Guisani. Charlotta, feel free to share your screen and then introduce. Oh, you know what? I just lost her. Got it. She's coming in right now. Don't worry. Sorry about that. We just lost her. She's coming in. Okay, let me talk a little bit about her. Oh, sure, she's here. Charlotta, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, let me introduce you again. Let's see. Today's guest speaker is Miss Charlotta Guisani. Miss Charlotta Guisani is the head of founding at the EOC EU office. She brings experience in the realm of the Olympic movement, sports funding, and the policies with deep-rooted passion for grassroots coaching and coaching education as a catalyst for sustainable community. She is equipped with a unique blend of professional qualifications in coaching, training, and project management, as well as she has been managing over 18 projects on different policy fields to create complete changes toward the advance of sports initiatives on the European and the global scale. So once again, please join me to welcome today's guest speaker, Ms. Charlotta Guisani.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for being around the table today. I will share my screen. Please let me know if you're able to see it.
Yes.
Awesome. Perfect. So really, on behalf of this EOCU office, a really special thank you to Women's Sport International for organizing this webinar on gender equality in sport governance, and really having the opportunity to showcase the Games project and its achievement, in particular the pool of action. And I really want to do a special thank you as well to Kari Fasting that's been with us for the past 2 years to make sure that actually this pool of action was of good quality. So thank you. And really what we really hope to do today is to use this webinar you kindly organized to reinforce the dissemination of the project and really trying to leave you with a concrete tool that you can use to boost gender equality within your organization at all level, whether you're working from an Olympic movement organization, from a federation, where you're working in a small club, hopefully this tool will be helpful. And as you've been knowing, the conversation around gender equality has been at the heart of the agenda of National Olympic Committee, European Olympic Committees, and sports stakeholders at large. However, what we really noticed then, there was kind of a gap between the policy and the recommendation that existed, and really what we wanted to achieve on the ground and making that change. And so really all you're gonna see today during this presentation is the result of a dedicated cohort of individuals which, representing the National Olympic Committee and other organizations, have been really champion in promoting gender equality in sport, and who are really propelling this agenda forward in their country and then across Europe. And really hope to get this as an inspiration for all of you, and to leave with a positive note, because actually gender equality will be a story of progress in the coming decades in Europe and across the world in general. So let me talk to you a bit more. What exactly is the GAME project? Well, the GAME project, the acronym GAME stands for Guidance to Achieve More Equal Leadership in Sport. And exactly like the title, the project had the scope to encourage the participation of women in leadership positions. And that's really the core of the project, was to guide partner NOC in developing concrete action plan in order for them to strengthen the gender equality in their decision-making position by tackling those that we call structural barriers, cultural barriers, but as well as by promoting pathway for women to reach these opportunities. But it wasn't just about the NOC. The NOC were kindly asked to work with the member federation to make sure that the benefit was going to trickle down to the national level and to the clubs, to all the different stakeholders. And so we had 24 months with the start of the project in April 2022 and the end in March 2024. And really, the idea of the project was to make 4 core main activities that I will explain to you in a minute, and really trying to develop, to understand where we're at, what we needed in terms of roadmaps to make concrete action for the future, and as well as to really understand how we can change our organization and our member organization through some strategic plan. And indeed, this project was also the result of the commitment of 8 European NOC, being Belgium, Czech Republic, Germany, Greece, Ireland, Latvia, North Macedonia, and Turkey, which benefit, of course, from peer-to-peer exchanges and knowledge sharing, as well as from the extensive knowledge of our expert partner, and already mentioned Kari Fasting, that was with us with Equal Rights in Sport, but also we work with I Trust Sport that helped us on some other aspect. And of course, we were really supported by the IOC Gender Equality Inclusion Unit that helped us. And we really had the great support of the IOC, JD Commission, and particularly the chair, Anna-Marie Phelps, that she was involved with us from the kickoff meeting to the end. And thanks to this group of committed champions to boost gender equality, we really managed to create some concrete output in 24 months that can benefit you all now moving forward. And of course, on the left side of the slide, you see some of the activities that we've been carrying out. So you see, we have done a lot of communication. More than 400 tweets were published, with almost 17 articles being published in different languages. Actually, the project ended up on national news twice in Greece and Czech Republic. We actually developed the pool of action that I will describe in a minute, but we also have clear other deliverables, such as the baseline study on gender equality in sport, the 8th national launching event, and really a lot of in-person meeting as well for the consortium to exchange and to learn from each other. So literally since 2022, the project has embarked on a mission to encourage that gender equality is reached, and then the existing norms which hold back women from reaching certain positions will be dismantled and will be concrete changes. So we really aim to create pathways to ensure that women could ascend to leadership and decision-making position within their NOC and within their membership. And accordingly, we developed National Action Plan, National Launching Event, really trying to make sure that there was a clear roadmap for the organization from the national stakeholder moving forward. Really, we have seen the implementation of this roadmap with mentoring and leadership training program being implemented, some quota for some NOC, the media guidelines being adopted, and some annual reports will now report also on gender equality matter as some of the concrete output of the project. But I would like to use this video here to explain to you a bit more what was the timeline of the project and what are the 4 steps, and then we'll better going forward with the concrete 4 step. So enjoy. So this is it. This is provided you with a bit of an overview of how we have divided the games project and what was the core element that comes with it. But let me break it down to you a bit more and to describe to you a bit what we did actually in each of these steps, because what we did within the framework of the games project can't be applied anywhere else. And you all with our consortium can do exactly the same in your own country, whether you are a group of organization or whether you're alone, then you can really kind of replicate the same. So for us, really the first steps really refer to this baseline study on gender equality and leadership position, which was conducted more or less between June and October 2022. So this was like literally where we started. And what was the idea of it? It was really to assess the current situation in terms of gender equality amongst our partner NOC, so the 8 NOC that I mentioned to you before, and also a sample of pre-selected national federation in those countries. And the sample of national federation included 8 sports, representing both winter and summer sport, as well as team sport and individual sport. So we had aquatics, athletics, basketball, football, gymnastics, skiing, tennis, and volleyball. Besides, each NOC partner had the opportunity to actually choose 2 additional sport or national federation to reach to, depending on their national context. So the idea was the main sport in your country, add these 2 to the list. So as a result, an additional 15 sports were reached by our questionnaire. So for example, we went to archery, biathlon, boxing, handball, ice hockey, judo, modern pentathlon, rowing, rugby, squash, triathlon, wrestling, just to mention some. And so what we did, once we identified the sport, once we identified to who to disseminate these to, we designed 2 questionnaires. One was for the NOC and one was for the National Federation. Both questions had qualitative and quantitative element to make sure we had kind of a better understanding of gender equality in governance of the NOC and the NFs. And then they were given recommendation on how to complete. The NOC were the contact point to then disseminate them among the national federation. And approximately 133 questionnaires were disseminated across 8 countries, the 8 countries of the partners, so being Belgium, Czech Republic, Germany, Greece, Ireland, Latvia, North Macedonia, and Turkey. And we reached 23 sports, including the 8 compulsory one and the 15 optional that I mentioned. And out of these 133, actually we're quite happy because the response rate was about 94.5%, which is quite high, which means that about 118 out of 133 of the question that we sent out, we actually responded and we received quite good information. So out of these 118 that we received, we decided to make an analysis, and we looked at having a multi-layer analysis, which was going to look at the implementation of gender equality policy within the NOC and this federation, and really looking at what was the main trend that we could see in terms of voting rights, staffing, policies and strategies, and initiative also that existed across the NOC and Federation to boost gender equality. What we came across, nothing new under the sun. Well, women accounted for no more than 1/3 of General Assembly voters. Likewise, men tend to be prevalent in senior management positions, an executive role, whether of the NOC and the NFs, regardless of their gender, of the staff. So it's really like this. We have seen few exceptions where there was some gender equality or diversity policy being put in place, where this was kind of shaking a bit the number. But overall, the majority did not have a gender equality policy in place, but they were interested into developing one, which means that there is an interest to follow this recommendation and this policy that comes out, but it seems there is a bit of a lack of resources to actually create this change. And to really mainstream gender equality in all the activities, and like the mainstreaming of gender equality is a big challenge. In terms of activities that we're being doing, we had a lot of networking, a lot of workshop, a lot of mentoring activity and education program. That was the mostly common program. However, more concrete action or more concrete initiative, which require change of status and so on, did not seem to be as common. So we see this as low-hanging fruit in terms of low and cheap activities as well to implement to create a change. Overall, please take this funding not an overview of where we are in terms of European Olympic NOCs or federation in general. These are not these NOC federations still not being fully representative of all NOC of all the sport ecosystem as such. And we haven't tried at all to make any attempt of ranking NOC on different contexts. But what really this was helpful, this baseline study, for us and for the NOC was actually to realize where they were at and really provide valuable insight within each organization in each country on their stage of readiness and where they are in terms of cultural and structural barriers they are currently facing. And so really this baseline study was key to then inform the next steps. And the next steps was to actually design and create this national action plan. It was about creating, designing, but also implementing afterwards. And for that was very helpful because the baseline study, there were countries that thought their gender equality was fantastic until they dealt with the data. And then they were like, oh, wow, actually we have a real issues here, the fact we need to tackle even more. So really, for us, was about creating a change. And to create a change, the National Action Plan was our tool to make a change within our NOC. And so really the idea was that we wanted to have each NOC with one national action plan able to include what was the mission of the organization, which was their vision, objective, and require action to boost gender equality, depending on the organization. And also taking into account the stage of readiness, the initial context, their member organization, and the operational capacity of NOC. As I said, there is a strong commitment among many sport organizations about wanting to change, but there is a lack of resources, of NOC human resources as well. What was good is that we asked them to define this national action plan, but really to make sure then the leadership was going to be on board, because we wanted to make sure that it was not only going to be a document, but afterwards there were going to be the adequate resources and follow up to make it into a concrete change for tomorrow. And of course, each country, each NOC has chosen different action depending on their national context, the stage of readiness. So for example, some of them, they might have went for changes in the statutes to actually encourage higher percentage women representation in the boards and the commission of their NOC. Some of them actually set term limits for leadership and decision-making position. Some of them went for the training workshop to really create that awareness still, and also really work more to guide national federation and national stakeholder on achieving gender balance as well, so that this will reflect also in their General Assembly and the Executive Board and Commission as well. Furthermore, there were some of them that decided to create some activity specific for their staff. So really to boost the awareness of all the staff, not only the gender equality lead, but also the HR policy, perhaps. And mostly we invited all of them to actually including monitor, measure, and reporting procedure. Because of course you can say you're doing a new action, that action looks great on paper, but if you don't monitor and you do not know how well you're doing it, whether it's bringing a success or not, there's no point for you to keep doing it. And in this regard, that was quite helpful for some of them to really understand how they can monitor, going back to the leadership and ask if there is need for more resources, less resources, or any changes. And as the action changed, also the time frame of each nation action plan depended on the stage of readiness and the type of action that we're going to seek. Some action will require less time. Some action might be require more of a cultural change that require a bit of time. But overall, all of the nation action plan range between 24 months, so 2 years, to 4 years, to 48 months. With all of them, though, all the partner NOC have already started implementing their national action plan in 2023. So do you see, the idea of the project was to say, hey, that's where we are at. Look at the situation in your country, look at the situation in your NOC, and develop this national action plan. But not only develop it, actually implement it within the project timeframe. We don't want to talk, we want to do. And in this regard, this national action plan should be better understood as being ambitious, very ambitious, but yet achievable roadmaps for these NOC to achieve within a set time frame, and their member federation as well, certain goal and certain action for boosting gender equality in leadership position. Yet we have to take into account, and these are living documents that must evolve and continue to evolve to reach the set target and to address the issue that might arise in the meantime, and to address what works well and what doesn't work well. But of course, like as I said before, we have a lot of documents, a lot of recommendations ready. So what would be the difference with the National Action Plan? Well, the National Action Plan, we wanted to be as concrete as possible, start the implementation, but also we knew that it was important to have the buy-in of the leadership, but it was also important to actually buy in the national stakeholder, the national federation, the clubs, those that actually work with us on a national level every day to boost gender equality. And then what we did was actually use what we call the national launching event, so step 3, to actually reinforce the receptivity and the dissemination of the National Action Plan through ad hoc national event organized in each partner NOC's country to reach national stakeholder. And indeed, we organized in each country, so Belgium, Czech Republic, Germany, Greece, Ireland, Latvia, North Macedonia, and Turkey, one event between April and December 2023. And each of them had the idea to present the outputs of the project, in particular the baseline study, to say, hey, that's where our country is at in terms of gender equality. And 2 was about presenting the National Action Plan and say, hey, this is what we have in mind for the upcoming months. Could you help us? Would you become an ally and support us into moving forward? But in some instances, it was also about, well, actually, this action might involve member organizations as well. So we actually hope that you will help us to make sure that we speed up this process and we get to what we have achieved together. We also had in this national launching event opportunity for open discussion and networking activities. So to really trying to promote a community of practice and a community of practitioners willing to help in the future to make sure that this document was becoming a change in practice. We initially had foreseen actually 30 people to come, but actually per each event. But actually we had about 64, so more than the double in each event on average. And we reached 34 organizations on average per each event, which in total it means that we had more than 500 people attending our 8 events, and we reached more than 250 organizations, and very different organizations. We also reached out to public authorities and so on. So our idea was not only to talk among the sports stakeholders, but also with other stakeholders that might be relevant. And we made sure that when it was necessary, there was adaptation in terms of language, translation, and make sure that all the context was relevant to the sociocultural context and country in which the event was happening. And really, these three steps have been fundamental to make sure that the NOCs, partner of the project, were able to create this concrete change. But we didn't want to stop at the Olympic movement. We didn't want to stop with the federation. We wanted to make sure that what we were creating was valuable for the entire sport ecosystem. And in order to do so, we moved on to the 4 steps, which was the game pool of action. And the game pool of action has not only guided the partner NOC while they were drafting their national action plan, but it really has the idea to be a manual of concrete action to boost gender equality in leadership position among a wide range of sports stakeholders, which they can pick this document, adapt this document depending on the organization stage of readiness and the social cultural context in which they operate. So really aim to be a roadmap, a manual to tackle structural procedure and cultural barriers that reinforce the gender gap. And so really encourage the promotion of pathways towards gender equality. Okay, but what's the pool of action like? Well, it's a document. It's available in online format and in printed format. I'll get back to you in a minute in that regard. And it's structured in 3 main pillars. You see here as well on the slide, which cover, and in total, 9 topics. So under each pillar, you have a series of topics. The idea is this topic are linked with a series of recommendations from the IOC and the EU institution in general, and also include a series of advocacy strategies, because of course, it's not always easy to convince others why you should be doing that. So you have these topics such as equal representation, term limits, election nomination committee, recruitment process, women development and mentoring program, member organization, but also communication, removal of existing barriers, development of a gender inclusive culture, financial element, which aim to then have specific action under each of these topics. Indeed, you have a set of concrete action that are either labeled as fundamental or additional action, depending on whether we believed was the core to lay the foundation to reach gender equality in leadership position, or whether this you can consider at a later stage. And overall now include 35 action, including fundamental and additional ones spread across the 9 topics that I mentioned. Furthermore, we didn't want just to have topic and word of action, how that. We really wanted to make sure to give you concrete guidance. And to give you concrete guidance, we thought that the best was to use already existing example of those organizations in sport that have already taken this action, already made this change. And so we had a set of examples covering about 13 countries and representing 14 sports. And you have them for each of the fundamental action, as well as for the transversal topics. Indeed, I did not mention it yet, but aligned with the high-level group of gender equality in sport of the European Commission, we also have included the transversal topics, which means these are topics that you need to take into account across when you're talking about gender equality. And you can think about them in all the different actions, in all the different pillars that we have discussed. And to conclude, we also had included what we said before, what we strongly believe of, which is monitoring evaluation measures. So we actually provided you with a set of qualitative and quantitative indicator for each of the 3 pillars, depending on also on the topic and so on, where you can really try to see how you can monitor and how you can evaluate the success of each of the action that you might foresee to implement in the upcoming months. And then, of course, we have some annexes where you have additional example, which are not specific to an action, but still related to the pool of action and gender equality in general, and a glossary. Of course, if we do not understand each other, it's always very complicated to really understand and grasp what we mean. So we really have a terminology to make sure that wherever you're at, you might not need it. You might be already an expert on gender equality, and so you can just pick some of the action that you might be more familiar, go directly to the transversal topic. Or you might be less familiar and say, okay, what do you exactly mean by this word? And so this glossary will help you to boost your confidence when using it. And so this is the pool of action. As I said, we have done in printed and online copies, but we also have actually done in long version and short version. This is exactly because we wanted to make sure that actually was able to be disseminated across different stakeholders. And we wanted to make sure that was not only for those that were already very familiar with the topic of gender equality, but also for those that were less familiar. And so the short version is actually a summary and require a bit less reading than the long version, which is more complete and provide you more in-depth insight on what I just described. But actually, we printed some copies, so we have some copies in printed, but we're trying to save the environment, so we prefer the online version, and the online format is actually available on the WSI Office website through this link that hopefully you will receive. And in our tool webpage, you will be able to download. And there you will be able to download both the online and the offline, the long and the short version of the pool of action. Furthermore, I'd like to mention that in the online part, we're trying our best to make sure that it was translatable in different languages as well. So all the website regarding the pool of action under our tool is actually available in different languages, and also has some support for different sizes and reading help for those that might have some struggle. So really we're trying to include some ad hoc features, trying to reduce the language and accessibility barriers and making as as spreadable and as applicable as possible to your context. So really, the goal here is that if you are committed to boost gender equality in sport leadership, you shouldn't miss out on the game's pool of action, because it really provides you with a concrete roadmap and strategy to encourage gender equality in sport leadership. And really, you can choose and pick and choose what suits your organization. And with the monitoring that we have recommended, you can see whether you are proceeding in the right way, and you can adapt and you can change. And through the example, you can really see how that was done already before. But as usual, there's some visual that can help. So I like here to share you some visual insight into the game's pool of action and what that will look like, the online version. So actually, by now you're Googling to look up to the pool of action and how you can, apologies for this, and how you can benefit from the pool of action. But just to conclude, I'd like to talk about legacy, because of course, during the games project, we have reached approximately 1,500 people actually, representing about 600 organizations, I say on average. That includes 50 European NSC, about 450 national, regional, local sport organization, policymaker, and this was done through our dissemination event. Through the game's social media, we managed to actually have almost 200 followers, 194, We have about 450 posts. We have really had more than, I think, 200 articles in different languages. We were in 90 news across European national and local newspaper, and we were in national television in Czechia and Greece, as I said. So really we're there. But what we really are proud of is that we moved from being a project to be a movement. And we had a lot of ad hoc project-related initiatives that emerged to boost gender equality in the leadership of the NSC as a result of the implementation of the National Action Plan and the Games project in general. And in particular, I take here the example of Belgium that has launched this ad hoc campaign during the national launching event that she leads. And if you notice, the She Leads logo and graphic has the same color as the Games project. So the arrow are just designed slightly different. And the idea is that really highlights the commitment of the NOC of Belgium, among others, to continue to work on gender equality and encourage cooperation and networking beyond the Games project timeframe. So they invite the really powerful women and very active women in this topic, but also men as important allies during their national launching event. And now out of that, they create this She Leads campaign, a movement that now is online presence, but also trying to engage more. And they are the one that will help to further support and disseminate this topic at the national level. And this is just one example. There are many others, and we as a Games Consortium will continue to meet further and to really create a change. And really what was all about the Games project was to start with a group of NOC and try to transform the Games project into a movement, and to this support further was the work of the EOC JD Commission, and work is the work of the IOC Gender and Equality Unit in general. And hopefully we have been quite successful in inspiring others, and we are really here to make sure that more can join and can be part of the Games movement and can further boost gender equality in leadership position, because we really hope that gender equality in leadership position become a story of success in Europe and beyond in the future. And so hopefully this has inspired you a bit, and I'd like to show you a bit more about our Games final conference, which is signpost the Games project being concluded and the game movement starting, and the commitment of not only the 8 NOC, but here you see a wide range of NOC committed to make sure that gender equality is taken serious in the future and create concrete changes. So this is the last video.
Do you wanna share? Sorry, excuse me. The audio is not working.
So maybe the audio was not the best, I understood, but we can share it.
Yeah, audio wasn't working. Do you want to try share again? I think the first 2 video was okay without the audio, but I think the last one, the audio. Yeah.
I will try to share with you afterwards again. I can share now in the chat a minute, and so you guys can see it's also available on the games. It's also available here. You go on the games Erasmus, then you will be able to find it, but I will share also in the chat with you all. Apologies for this technical issue, but yeah, this was a bit of an overview of what we've been doing in the past 2 years to the games project. And a really special thanks on behalf of the UC office to all of you to be around here today. And a special thanks again to Women's Sport International and to Carrie Fasting for these great opportunities. Please reach out should you require any further support, clarification, information. So also beyond this project, and please continue to follow us because the project is finished, but we have a lot of work to do to boost gender equality in leadership position. Thank you.
I am trying to find the video on Twitter, I mean the X. So I was gonna put on the chat. Anyway, thank you again, Charlotte, for pretty comprehensive presentation. It was very, very informative in terms of like how you started, how did step you took, and then the information we are available for all of us to use. So now we are going to move into the question and answer session. So you can raise your hands and then speak, or you can also feel free to type in the chat as well. So I see Ruby's hands up. So Ruby, would you like to start with your question? Hold on, you muted.
Hello, Carlotta. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very inspiring. I'm an Erasmus Mundus student, and I'm about to graduate. I'm on my last semester, and my master thesis is on Asian women in sport governance. And so my original proposal was to have the 5 regions of Asia, but given a short time and just a very short length for the paper, I've zeroed in on Southeast Asia. We are 10 founding nations. I am from the Philippines. And exactly your presentation reflects where it's almost a mirror. So I would like to take what you have studied and accomplished in the EU to Asia, starting with Southeast Asia. So I need to finish my requirements, but this is just the beginning. After my graduation, I would like to continue, and seeing what you have accomplished, I just need to replicate what you have already done, your theoretical framework, the questionnaire, and then adopt it. I'm part of Women's Sport International, but to make this initiative, I'm looking forward to the support that I can get. Not much. Europe doesn't really know so much about Asia. That's how I have seen it. Europe knows more about Africa, but not so much in Asia. So we are a fast-growing region. We have the most of 60% of the world's population, the fastest-growing economies. In Asia are India and the Philippines. We have outpaced China and the Asian tigers. So yet what the world doesn't know yet is that we as women, we have barriers. Exactly what you have said, it's structural and cultural. That's what I also have seen in my interviews. And a lot of the people don't even know that these are barriers because we just grew up with it. It's just part of our culture for centuries. So and the whole structure is really male dominated in sport in Asia. So I'm glad I attended this presentation, and I would like to network with you and see how your study can be replicated in Asia, starting with Southeast Asia, so we can break those norms that prevent women from accessing leadership positions in sport. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rubian. Thank you very much for your positive feedback and for sharing how this has been perceived at your end. I remember during the Games midterm conference, we had the chair of the EOC Commission, Marie Phelps, that has kindly presented some insight as well, like where we are in Europe compared to other continents as well. Because of course, you know, as European, we tend to be always great. We always think we are the greatest, but sometimes don't happen. And it was striking because I think for like we, for example, in Europe, the average of percentage of women on NSC executive board at the time, there was like Europe was about 27%, and we were lacking well behind America and Oceania. We were just at the same time with Africa, and actually Asia was just behind us. And kind of a similar scenario was when Europe and Asia were kind of the back together, to be fair, also with the Africa, in terms of percentage of women in NOC General Assembly. So why I'm saying that is because we all have a lot of work to do. And if we can learn from each other and avoid replicating things, but taking the general framework and then adapting that to the nuances of our context, social cultural context, then is what really successful. So Rubian, please get in touch and let us know if we can help more with this pool of action. There are many tools now to translate the pool of action in different languages. I don't think we have translated Mandarin or in the Philippines or in any other languages, to be fair. We're stuck more to Europe, also because the project was financed by the European Union, and therefore we had to stick to certain regulation as well. But please consider that. We'll be happy if you want to further disseminate and translate that. And that's for everyone around it. Please let us know if you have an interest on translating this and further disseminate that into your language. We can try to help as much as we can.
Yes, thank you. Actually, even with just English, that will reach a lot of people already here in Asia.
We have that in English. We made that in English.
So I will stay in touch with you so we can implement this in Asia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next question, I see the hands up, please. Anna Marie, please.
Hi, Carlotta. Hi, Ruby. Thanks so much, Carlotta. I've been involved with this for quite a while, but Carlotta, I wondered whether it would be helpful, and it's a question I don't know the answer to, and it might be helpful to Ruby and other people to understand whether there were some fundamental foundations that had happened already in Europe, the conversations maybe that had been happening around gender equality in sport that needed to happen before we moved successfully into this project. So I think this project didn't start from ground zero. It started from a number of conversations, but were there some real foundations that were helpful to have in place before we started this project that maybe other regions of the world would find interesting to know about?
So thank you very much, Anna Marie, for this question. Anna Marie is the chair of the EOC Commission that I was talking about, one of our ambassadors from the beginning of the project. In regard of the question, of course, there were important development, which you could consider. This development actually occurred at two levels. One was at the European Union levels. So as I said, this project was financed by the European Union. Actually, it was only financed for 250,000 euro. I want to say that very clearly because it's a lot of time we think we really need a lot of money. Actually, this was a project where honestly 250 to really stretch with with conference and so on, but really with a little amount of money we really create a change. And this was really linked with two main kickoffs started. One at the European level, which was the fact that we were under the von der Leyen Commission, and we had this EU gender equality strategy 2020-2025 to really put more and more pressure onto promoting gender equality in sport in general. And also there is increasing pressure in Europe about organization to be scrutinized when they do not adhere to gender equality matters in general. So if you now do a conference where there are only men, you would really get questioned by the public, by other sponsors, by different stakeholders. So it's really something that in Europe, it's kind of being pushed quite forward. And the other things that, of course, that was also a key priority. So one layer is the European Union, the second layer is the Olympic movement. And within the Olympic movement, of course, this was a principle of Olympism. And so it was really pushed at the time by the IOC, which they had this idea of the 30%. But actually, most importantly for us, that in 2021, so the year in which we wrote the project application, the EOC has changed its election procedure to guarantee a more gender-balanced executive committee, which is then also led a few months after to the creation of the EOC strategies for gender equality and safeguarding, which then we were able to work closely with Anna-Marie to make sure that everything we're going to do in the project was actually aligned with the EOC work, then ultimately would be aligned with the IOC work. And we were making sure that our NOC would align their work with the National Federation and so on. So we took from these two kickoff points, one be the European Union, putting gender equality at the center of their commission time, and the EOC progress and the IOC progress in this regard. We really used the project, and the project really trying to respond to the necessity that you see. Then sport organization and NOC were really working hard on trying to push this topic forward. But in a lot of contexts, there was a lack of financial and human resources. And that's not something to undermine on the fact that the majority that also came up in the baseline study, the majority of organizations that we sampled, being National Federation or NOC, have a very limited number of staff. And this number of staff is increasingly stretched to deal with gender equality, with safeguarding matter, with sustainability, and so on and so forth. And so there was a need, there was an interest. And what the project really showed, and then once there was the IOC strategy ready, the EOC strategy ready, the EU funding ready, the ANOC and others that actually were not in the project, but then say, oh, look what these guys are doing. They actually started. And the proof is that actually, so we did the baseline study until October. We started the National Action Plan in November, and they had it ready in June, which is the proof that if you walk the talk, if you have the right support, if you align the right element, in 6, 7 months, you have National Action Plan, which then became which start to be implemented within a year from when we start talking about them. So within a year, you had concrete changes, and I mentioned some of them. There was a pressure, it's true, from the IOC and the EOC, but the work on the ground that's been done was outstanding. Some NOC did not have anything in place, and now they're going for quota. They're going for quota of 40%. Some of them well surpassed the 30%. They're talking about 50%. So this is an example of how once there are the right movement at the continental level in the sport field, then the change can occur once you identify the right ally and the right people to make this change. But thank you, Anna-Marie. Indeed, this context was very important as well.
It's kind of connected to my question. My question was actually how to get some of the tips to get buy into people, because I was amazed of higher percentage of response rate for the baseline study to begin with. That's just as a researcher, getting the high getting responses, getting a buy-in is the hardest part. But sounds like that your answer the previous answer has answered that question to me. So I guess my next question is what are some of the things that you learned through this project? And if you were to do the similar project again, are there any things that you'd adjust, would you change, or like you do the same?
So there are things that I would do the same. So I would never change the team of support that we had. The partner NOC were amazing. The support that we received from the IOC and EOC was outstanding, and the support of Kari and Roland, it was absolutely fantastic. We would not have done any of these without their support. So in terms of human, this for me was a great element on the fact that we learned, and there was challenges. We encountered quite a lot of challenges. We encountered challenges particularly related to the leadership, in the sense that we worked in a different way. So we propose a project where they know they can get finance for. So it's an ideal thing, because as I was saying, IOC were pushing this agenda, and suddenly we are coming, tell them, hey, we can give you some budget to do this activity. So that we're many jumping on board. But what we really found that sometimes the people on the ground are left alone if there is not the right support. So what I would do different, I would make sure that we receive the approval from the leadership at the beginning of the project, but I would make sure that they are more engaged throughout the project lifetime. Because those NOCs, those that had their leaders more present during the events, during the project, they had been able to create more concrete changes, more structural changes, and they're able to actually leaving lasting legacies. Those that did not have the leadership, was great, the group that was able to support those individuals. But some were really left alone, without resources, without knowledge. So for us, the lesson learned, and when we are moving on to the next project, which is about safeguarding, we're really making sure that now we're having a training for the leadership. So what the things I would have had would be a training at the beginning of the project to the leaders, to really help them as well as leaders to know how they could help those implementing those changes on the ground. So really to create more of a dialogue between them. And the other things that I think could have been valuable is to have even more exchanges during the implementation. Then unfortunately was a project was developed within a EU funding scheme, and we had certain rules and certain regulations. When the implementation phase was key, and to some extent having had more time or having had more meeting in those time could have really helped. Because what we are saying is then once you come into practice how to implement, how to get the resources, the knowledge sharing and the peer-to-peer discourse, that was key to really understand how others do and how to inspire others. So even more focus on the implementation if you ever could, and leadership. That's the two key. But I'm also happy if Kari or other people that have been involved, and Maria has been involved in the project, would like to share what they felt from their side could have been pushed forward more on the project.
I tried to show my hands, but it was more for a comment. Can I talk? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's just a comment because it's sharing some experiences, because what really was also when this started, and with this background that you answered the question to Anne-Marie, was that the countries was so different. That was a huge challenge, and we were talking about this. How can we manage? How can we carry out these projects when we have countries who are so far advanced and be in the same project to countries who have done nothing? but that became a success, and it's difficult to know why, but I think that it's related to two things: the flexibility of the project and the concretization. Can one say that? Because this project is very, very concrete. All actions are very concrete, and also the flexibility in that. For example, I remember when we discussed the pool of action. Maybe in other projects I've been involved in, we have had a pool of action. It has been this pool of action, so and so. Here was we just served them a lot of pool of action, but we didn't say take this, or you have to have two there, or you have to have two structures, and you have at least to have some cultural. It was flexibility. But the way I understood also, but you touched upon it now, that for some of these countries, the plan of action that they suggested was really, shall we say, radical or far away from where they were. And but these women that participated, in female members of NOC's executive board often, they are really tough. So, you know, they have actually, to be honest, some of the countries had really problems with getting through their plan of action. And that was also a very good part of the project, I think, in relation to that it was so concrete. They have to develop a plan of action, but they also have to present it for their own board, which I think was very positive. And I also think that's a way of seeing that it's not only, I mean, we all have participated in a lot of projects about leadership, and we have used a lot of time to make concrete plans, but we have often not seen them implemented. You can see that the last stage of implementation we also haven't seen, but the project have done the first implementation, and that was not easy to get this plan of actions through the NOCs. Yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, Kari, I indeed, I mean, I think we were there, and we remember some of these meetings where some NOC, some were really struggling. Actually, some others are going now through, especially when it was about changing like the structural measure. So when it was about term limits, so we had some included term limits. Can you imagine for a lead, like convincing your leadership to say, hey, in the next round, you're gonna go home, or to speak about quota where they didn't have quota, age limit to some extent to make sure there was different representation as well. So we really, and I remember some NOC almost really fell down, like there was really heavy discussion at the leadership, and we had even to interfere. But these, I would say, are the ones that progressed the most. So it's true that we have different NOC at different stages, but paradoxically, when you look at now, those that made the biggest steps were not the one that was the most advanced. The one that was most advanced, they might add one stone to the work on gender equality, but you had some that came in with nothing in place, and they're working out with 40% quota. And as Kari said, I think moving forward, we should think about more when we do recommendation and think how these apply, how this is practically happening. Because recommendation, we have enough. We need to walk the talk.
So, did any countries receive any government support to enhance gender equality?
Currently, no, but that because they were not allowed as well. So they were not allowed to claim money for the same activity of the project. That's called double financing according to the European Union. However, as part of the legacy and dissemination, we had also set activities that they needed to take into account to make sure then once the project was ending, they were able to continue the activities that they had set up in the National Action Plan. And so they are receiving, some of them are receiving support from Olympic Solidarity. You might be familiar that the Olympic movement has a foundation, which is Olympic Solidarity, which gives back to the NOC to implement this sort of activity. So, for example, the NOC of Greece, the NOC of Turkey, the NOC of Montenegro are getting finance, of North Macedonia getting finance to continue their activity through Olympic Solidarity. Some others, like the NOC of Belgium, as well as the NOC of North Macedonia, have actually established cooperation with national stakeholders that might be interested on their activities. So many of them have received financial support for the national launching event. One of that was Belgium. They had money as well from the federal state and from the city, from the region. But also we have the example of North Macedonia, which are actually working with the UN or with other initiatives or other stakeholders that do not give financial support in itself, but they give resources, knowledge, and tools for them to continue to implement. So not yet, they haven't received any governmental support yet, but they are looking more on strategic partnership with those that can help them also in terms of knowledge, in terms of activities, and so on.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlota, for your presentation and also like answering all these questions. It was very, very helpful. So thank you again for being here, taking your time and being here. Okay, before you leave, I would like to take a quick moment to talk about the WSI. So there. So WSI is organizations that we have a membership. Am I having the, okay, do you see, is everyone see my screen okay? All right.
Yep.
Thank you. So, thank you, Carlota. So WSI is the organizations that we have a membership from all over the world. So if you are interested in joining WSI and a community, a network, and expand your network on women in sports around the world, please visit our website. And then this very first page, it says join WSI. And if you click that, that's gonna take you to our membership page as well. Also, WSI has 3 social media platforms, the Facebook, LinkedIn, and the X. And if you have not followed us on the social media platforms, please make sure to follow us, because we share many different informations, not just about Women's Sports International, but any pretty much information about advocating girls and women in sports around the world. So please follow us on the social media as well. So again, once again, thank you so much for taking your time and then attending WSI webinar today. So today's recording will be available on our website soon. Okay, and then so I do already have several messages that they couldn't attend in live, but they would like to receive their recordings. So I'll make sure to share those recording information to those people as well. So once again, thank you for being here, everyone. And then again, Carlota, thank you for taking your time to presenting that very comprehensive project that you guys have done in Europe. I think that is it's like a leading example project that we can all follow, like, you know, borrow the knowledge and information from around the world as well.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much on behalf of the WSI office.
Thank you. So once again, thank you everyone for being here, and we will stay in touch. Thank you.
Bye.